Welcome to Your Math Explained, where we make math simple and clear. My name is Julian, and today we'll look at two simple problems that revolve around data management and statistics. The first problem is for grade 9 and 10 students, and the second problem is for grade 11 and 12 students. In both problems, we utilize basic statistics principles to reason out our answer. Pause the video now if you haven't had a chance to read it, otherwise, let's jump in. In this problem, we're being told that we have 6 tests, so right away, my first inclination is to name these tests. I'll call them x1 all the way up to x6, each one representing their own test scores. And we are given some relationships between these tests. So for the first bullet point, it says the first and second test mark has an average of 85. So that tells me x1 plus x2 divided by 2 is equal to 85. And I can go ahead and create the same relationship or same type of relationship for all of the other bullet points. So we see that as we write down all of these relationships, each one is giving us a pair of test scores, and we can turn it into some sort of number provided that we divide it by 2. This dividing by 2 is how we calculate the average or midpoint of two different values. So we've got a total of 5 relationships right now. And I don't think I speak for myself when I say the fraction's kind of annoying. So for all of us, we're just going to multiply through by 2 so that we can get some non-fractional relationships. So I'll write all of these down by multiplying through by 2. We'll get some bigger numbers, yes, but it's not going to be detrimental to us because we'll be using a calculator later. So finally, our goal right now, the question is asking us what is the average between the first and the 6th test. So we would want to divide that by 2 and we'll see what the result is. What we notice here is that our final result should only have 2 variables in it. That's x1 and x6. So given all of these equations that have come into play now, I'm going to try to figure out how to piece them together with an x1 to an x6, and then eliminating the x2, x3, x4, and x5. So one natural thing that I'm looking at right now is that what would happen if I just added all of these numbers? Well, if I added up all of the x's on the left side of each equation, I would have x1, I would have 2 of those x2s, 2 of those x3s, 2 of those x4s, and 2 of those x5s, and then only 1 x6. So that's encouraging, right? We've got the x1 and x6 showing up. On the right side, since we added up the left side of the equation, we're going to add up the right side of the equation. It turns out those 5 big numbers just add up to 800. Recognizing that we want x1 and x6 only, we're going to try to get rid of all the other ones. And luckily, there's some nice grouping that can be done. x2 plus x3 can be grouped together, and then x4 and x5 can be grouped together because we have those values. We can input 164. We can also input 158 into those positions, and now we're just left with 2 variables, x1 plus x6. So let me finish that off over here. When we get the numbers onto the other side of the equation, we'll do 800 minus the sum of those 2 values. We get 156 on the right side. And going back to the original problem, we would like to find x1 plus x6 divided by 2. So when we divide by 2 on both sides, we'll have a value of 78%. And that would be the average of the first and sixth test. In our grade 11 and 12 problem, we have something similar, except they've done more average calculations than the previous problem. So again, I noticed that there are 3 tests, so I will name the tests x1, x2, and x3. So for each bullet point, I'm going to try to create a new equation, and we'll see what happens. He first calculates the average of the first and second test marks. So x1 plus x2 divided by 2, that's the average calculation. And I'm going to give that a new name. I'll call that A sub 1, 2. So that's the average of test 1 and test 2. Then he uses this average with his third test mark to get another score of 74%. So that's telling us that A12 plus the third test divided by 2 is equal to 74. We'll do the same for the second bullet point. So that's x2 plus x3 divided by 2. And this we'll call A sub 23, the average of test 2 and test 3. And then he's doing the same thing, so A sub 23 plus x1 divided by 2 is equal to 73.5. Finally, x1 and x3 divided by 2, we'll call it A sub 13, and that is being averaged with test number 2 to create 76. What's the goal of the problem? Well, they're asking us to find the average of the 3 test marks. So I'll write down here x1 plus x2 plus x3. Since we're looking for the average of 3 numbers, we're going to divide it by 3. And that is going to represent the answer that we want. So how do we get to this point of getting x1, x2, and x3? Well, I think a similar process to the grade 10 problem would be applied here. On the top right, these 3 equations have numbers to them, so it's probably a good idea to see what happens when we add them up. So if I add up the left side of the equation, I'm going to get A sub 1, 2 plus A sub 2, 3 plus A sub 1, 3 plus x1 plus x2 plus x3, and they're all over 2. That would equal to the sum of the right side, which is going to make 223.5. So that's adding the 74, the 73.5, and the 76. Similar to the last problem, we probably don't want to see this fraction, so I'm going to multiply everything through by 2 so that I don't have a decimal on the right side and I don't have a fraction on the left. That makes it 447 on the right. Now there's more relationships to be had because we want to keep the x1, x2, x3, but we don't want to see the a's. So from the first set of equations that we created, it's a relationship between the x's to the a's. So I'm going to fill those in and we'll get x1 plus x2 over 2, and then x2 plus x3 over 2, and then x1 plus x3 over 2, and then of course the other 3 x's that were already there. And now we're kind of happy because this is just grouping like terms. So if we take a look at the left side, I think these fractions here, we notice that there are 2 x1s, 2 x2s, and 2 x3s. So that's the same as 2 times x1 plus x2 plus x3, and they're all still over 2, plus x1 plus x2 plus x3 equals 447. And then the 2's would cancel. That means overall on the left side of the equation, I have 2 of those x1 plus x2 plus x3s equals 447. And since our goal is to get the x1 plus x2 plus x3 divided by 3, I can accomplish that by dividing everything by 6. So I'll get x1 plus x2 plus x3 over 3. And on the right side, 447 divided by 6 is going to give us 74.5%. And that would be the average of his 3 test marks. That wraps up this week's problems. Check out the problems that I've posted for next week's video. Try them on your own first and see how you'd approach them. And as always, if you found this helpful, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
That's it for this video. If you found it helpful, remember to hit that like and subscribe. And if there's a topic you'd like us to cover, make sure to drop it in the comments.